This video, let's see setting a default property value with a closure or a function. So in my words, if a constant stored property default value needs a calculation, a constant stored property in the sense, for example, let's say I need a random. For example, let's say I have a struct called random in which I have a property called random value, which is of int, which I want to calculate. Why? Because if let's say my scenario is like, if it is a even number, I want to return it. If I get a odd number as a random number, I want to add +1 and then return it. So if these calculations, if we want to store it, but I need it as a constant, not as a variable stored property. So in these cases, this constant stored property default value, this needs a calculation. We can use a closure, and as you can see it, let me take a random value. For example, if it is integer, I need something from 1 to 100, let's say. So I will get a value. So if a is an even number, if not an even number, I want to do add a with +1, otherwise I want to return it as it is. For example, let's say it's my functionality. Okay, so as you can see, it is ending with the braces. That means this gets executed before the initialization of this random structure. So this is the way of setting a default property value if it needs a calculation for a constant stored property. So if you want to check it, I create an instance, I calculate it, when I run it, 34, 58. So it's always giving me a default value, but it is having so much of calculation. So but I need it to be a constant, I don't want it to be a variable. So this can be done using the closure. As you can see, it is ending up with these curly braces. That means it's get executed before the initialization of the structure. So what I mean to say is, for example, let me write a initialization function in this just to show you. I'm writing init. So for example, if we want to see what is the return value, okay, so first random value gets calculated, after that init will get called. So let me run it. If I run it, as you can see, first, before the initialization of this structure itself, this closure gets executed and it will be ready with random value. It is same as it is nothing but assigning. For example, the value is 30, assigning like this, but this value is a random number. It is having this calculation. We are giving it in a closure, default property value with a closure or a function. So in the code, but this gets in this code gets executed before the initialization of this structure. So that is the reason if we use a closure to initialize a property, we need to remember that the rest of the instant has it at being initialized at the point that the closure is executed. This means that we cannot access any other property values from within the closure. Other structure random properties or methods we cannot access in this closure. Even if those properties have default values also, we cannot. And of course, as it is getting executed before the init, we cannot even implicitly use the self property. So that is the advantage of using the closures for setting a default values for a constant stored properties, and it's quite usually we use it in the code. You might have seen some readily constructed views like this, where we create, for example, let a is equal to, we create, and here we customize the views, right? We set the frame whatever the frame we need, we set it here 0, and I can set the a dot background color is equal to UI color dot red. So I can call it as red view, and I can use this boilerplate code. So there are two advantages. One thing is using like this, I can use this as a boilerplate code, and also all the temporary variables like this a and this view, all these are within the closure. So the temporary variables are pretty much enclosed, and there is a transparent, and there is much encapsulation. So inside what is happening, we are not revealing it, but we are storing a constant property. So that's how we can that is one of the advantages of closures in Swift, where we can set a default property value using the closure, so that the code looks decent in Swift language. Here I forgot to use is equal to. Why? Because these are not computed properties, so that is the reason the code is complaining. So that is it. The difference between computed properties and constant stored properties with the calculation as a closure is they'll have is equal to, and they will be like this. That means this will get executed immediately. It's like calling the function. This is how we call the function, right? Any function, for example, test is a method, we call like this. That is the reason it is ending up with this curly braces. That means you are giving the closure and immediately calling the function, correct? So I hope this video is useful. Thank you.